The first time I saw her standing in the doorway at dawn, wrapped in silence and pale light, she was wearing my shirt, and nothing else, and in that fragile moment the entire weight of my past crashed into my chest, because the shirt wasn't just cloth, it was proof that two broken lives had collided in the dark and somehow survived the night. The world outside the window was still asleep, but inside that small apartment everything had changed, and I knew before she even turned around that whatever story had brought us here would never let me go again. Before the story pulls you any deeper into its heart, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of human connection, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this only live when they're felt together. My name is Daniel Whitmore, and for most of my life I believed solitude was safer than love. I carried that belief like a shield after losing everything that once defined me. Years earlier, I had a family, a house that smelled like coffee every morning, and dreams that felt solid enough to touch. Then a single rainy night rewrote my existence, leaving me with nothing but guilt, grief, and an echoing quiet that followed me from city to city. I ended up in a small coastal town, working long hours at a repair shop, renting a one-bedroom apartment that felt more like a waiting room than a home. I told myself I chose this life because it was simple, but the truth was I didn't trust myself with anything that could break again. Emily Carter entered my life without warning, the way storms do, sudden and impossible to ignore. I found her sitting on the curb outside the shop one evening after closing, shoulders hunched, eyes red, rain soaking through her jacket as if the sky itself had singled her out. She looked like someone who had run out of places to go, and something in me recognized that look immediately. I offered her a ride without thinking, then hated myself for how quickly my guard fell. She said very little, just an address that turned out to be a shelter already full for the night. The silence between us was heavy, but not uncomfortable, and when I offered my couch, it felt less like a choice and more like gravity. The first days were awkward and careful, two strangers circling each other's pain without naming it. Emily moved like someone trying not to take up space, cleaning dishes that were already clean, folding blankets with unnecessary precision. I learned in fragments that she had escaped a life built on control and fear, that she had left with nothing but a backpack and a stubborn will to survive. At night I lay awake listening to the building settle, wondering if letting her stay was a mistake or the first honest thing I'd done in years. Every instinct told me to keep distance, but every morning I found myself making extra coffee, leaving it on the counter without a word. What neither of us expected was how slowly, quietly, the walls began to lower. It wasn't romance at first, just recognition. We shared meals eaten standing up, stories offered in half sentences, long walks along the shoreline where the ocean did most of the talking. I noticed the way Emily smiled when she forgot to be afraid, how she flinched at raised voices on television, how she lingered near the window at sunrise as if checking that the world was still there. She noticed my scars too, the way I avoided certain streets, the nights when I stared at nothing for hours. We never promised each other anything, but something unspoken started to grow in the quiet. The night everything shifted was unremarkable on the surface. A power outage darkened the town, candles flickered against the walls, and the rain returned like an old memory. We talked longer than usual, about loss, about the people we used to be, about the fear of becoming someone we didn't recognize. The closeness felt inevitable, not rushed or reckless, but born from two people finally allowing themselves to be seen. When sleep came, it was gentle, and for the first time in years, I didn't dream of the past. Morning arrived softly, and that is when I saw her, standing there in my shirt, sunlight threading through the fabric, her expression caught between vulnerability and strength. The shirt hung loose on her, but she wore it like armor, and in that image I saw not possession or desire, but trust. It terrified me. Trust meant responsibility. Trust meant the power to hurt or heal. As she turned, our eyes met, and in that silent exchange I understood that this moment was asking more of me than comfort, it was asking for courage. The days that followed tested everything we had built. Emily was offered a chance to relocate, a job opportunity in another city that promised independence and safety. At the same time, my past resurfaced in the form of an old friend who reminded me of the life I had abandoned, the mistakes I still carried. Fear crept back in, whispering that closeness only leads to loss, that it was safer to let her go now than to watch everything fall apart later. Emily wrestled with her own doubts, torn between staying in a place tied to her healing and leaving to prove she could stand alone. We drifted in that uncertainty, each step heavy with unspoken questions. There were moments when it felt easier to retreat, to pretend the connection was temporary, convenient, accidental. But then there were moments too strong to ignore, like the way she laughed when she finally felt free, or how the apartment began to feel warm instead of empty. I realized that the pain I feared had already happened in my life, and hiding from love had never saved me from it. All it had done was delay the chance to feel alive again. The turning point came quietly, without grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It came in the form of choice. I chose to be honest about my fear, to stop letting the past dictate every decision. Emily chose to believe that staying did not mean weakness, that building something with someone did not erase her strength. We didn't promise forever, but we promised effort, patience, and truth. In a world that had taken so much from both of us, that promise felt revolutionary. As time moved forward, the apartment filled with signs of life, plants on the windowsill, photographs on the fridge, laughter that didn't echo but settled in comfortably. The shirt remained, no longer a symbol of one fragile morning, but a reminder of where our courage began. We learned that healing is not a straight line, that love does not erase scars but teaches you how to live with them. Together, we became proof that broken pieces can form something whole, not by force, but by care. If this story is touching something inside you, if it reminds you of a moment when kindness changed a life or when love arrived unexpectedly, please take a second now to like the video, share it, and subscribe, because your engagement helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. Tell us in the comments what this story made you feel, and whether you believe that the smallest acts of compassion can change the course of a life. In the end, when I think back to that morning light and the way she stood there wearing my shirt, I don't think about what she wasn't wearing at all. I think about everything we were brave enough to face, and how sometimes the most powerful transformations begin in silence, with two people choosing not to walk away.